Hi, everyone. Welcome back. You are watching the Zenith Glow Astrology YouTube channel. My name is Christina, and I am an astrologer. Thank you so much for being here. Excited to have you. We are talking about the upcoming new moon in Gemini for today's topic. So, there's a few different things happening with this particular new moon. Some of them are very drastic things. So, we're going to go ahead and get into all of that for today. Just a couple of basic things to know about this new moon. So, it is happening on May 27th at 3:02 a.m. Universal Time. And it is a supermoon, even though we can't see it because the sun and moon are conjunct with each other at this time. It is a supermoon, so we will tend to feel these impacts a little bit stronger just for that very reason, because a supermoon is when the moon is closer to the Earth in its orbit. So let's go ahead and pull up a chart so that we can see what are the aspects that are occurring at this time and what can we anticipate from those. And just in general, the sun moved into the sign of Gemini recently. And so we have Gemini energy already highlighted for us through the sun transiting in this sign. And then as well, we also have Jupiter, which spends a year transiting through each of its signs through its orbit. And it is starting to get towards the end of Gemini. Jupiter is actually going to be moving into the sign of Cancer next month. So we're going to be feeling that shift soon. But then, as you know, if you follow my work, and I always talk about the anaretic degree of the signs having particular influence or importance. So, as Jupiter, with its highly expanded field of influence, gets closer to that anaretic degree, we are also going to feel that energy start to heighten. So, we have the great magnifier in the sign of Gemini, we have the sun in the sign of Gemini, we have the new moon, which is the moon and sun conjunct in the sign of Gemini. This is all bringing up a lot of Gemini energy. And then we have the ruler of Gemini, which is the planet Mercury, not only in the sign of Gemini, but at the time of this new moon, it is conjunct with the new moon. So we have Mercury at 2 degrees conjunct with the new moon itself, which is at 6 degrees. So yeah, Gemini, 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 Gemini. We have a lot of that energy going on right now. And I might even be sounding a little bit like a Gemini as I'm speaking, because Gemini is very fast, forward-moving energy, or rather, I wouldn't say forward moving, I would say it's very frenetic energy. It is actually a mutable sign, so it's kind of this energy of a centrifuge where energy is kind of spinning outward from the center. So there could be, more inclination to learn, more inclination to speak, to communicate, to visit with people, to share with others, to make connections, whether that's mental, physical, emotional, whatever. Yeah, curiosity is at its peak, and overall, Gemini is connected to the mind, right? Mercury rules our logical mind, and then through the sign of Virgo, it rules the gut, which is the other mind in our body, right? So we have the mind in the gut, and then the mind in the brain, and we are activating the brain mind of things at this time. So, all right, let me just slow down a minute here. And this is good advice for Gemini season. Whoo, slow down, get into your body, get out of the head for a minute. All right, so there are several different things happening, like I said. First and foremost, as I said, it's a supermoon, so the energy is magnified because of that. Secondly, the ruler of the new moon is conjunct the new moon. It's kind of like putting a hat on a hat. It is extra emphasized, right? So Mercury is very active at this time. We are definitely feeling mercurial energy. Mercury is our mind. It is the way we speak, the way we communicate, the way we think, but also Mercury is a manifester. It is the way that we manifest, because in order to manifest, we have to start in the brain, right? We have to come up with an idea. We have to come up with a vision for something before we can do all the other steps of manifestation and put it into action. And again, Mercury being co-ruler of Gemini and Virgo kind of represents that process where it starts in the brain and then it moves into the earth sign of Virgo where it becomes tangible, practical, physical. So, new moons are new beginnings, right? A time to plant seeds, a time to manifest. So, having our planet of manifestation conjunct with the new moon in this sign of brilliant ideas seems like a great opportunity to manifest some stuff if you've been wanting to do that. And who doesn't want to do that? When do we ever not want to manifest? So, do keep in mind that that in and of itself is a good reason to put some energy towards manifestation during this new moon. Think about what excites you. Think about what lights you up, what gets you curious. What do you want to learn more about? How do you want to expand maybe your social circle? How do you want to expand your understanding of things? How do you want to expand in your communication? There are opportunities right now to do that, especially planting seeds for those things that are going to sprout later. So take advantage of that energy at this time. But there are some other important aspects going on at the time of this new moon. So, one of the biggest things happening right now is we have Saturn. And literally, at the time that I'm recording this video, Saturn is at 29 degrees of Pisces. The day before the new moon on May 26th, Saturn is going to ingress or change signs from Pisces to Aries. So it's going to be at 0 degrees of Aries, all right? Again, going back to these degrees and breaking down the meanings of the degrees, 29 is an important degree because it's kind of like the door closing, and then 0 is an important degree because it's the door opening, right? It's that transition process. The two of them together represent the threshold that we stand on between two different signs. And when a planet moves from one to the other, it is creating a bridge between those two energies, right? And then symbolically, we could look at this as the semi-sextile aspect in astrology. But either way, even if you're not looking at it that way, it's an important thing, right? Especially having an outer planet, or rather, Saturn is a social planet, still an important planet, a very influential planet, a planet that we definitely feel when it makes changes, right? Changing signs is something very significant to have Saturn doing at this time. And then on top of that, if you look at our chart here, you'll notice that we pretty much have a triangle pointing towards the left of the chart. You'll notice that the apex of the triangle is Saturn. And again, ignore the houses. The houses don't matter in this chart. It is just the planets and their aspects to each other in relation to the signs. So, what we have going on here is known as a minor grand trine aspect pattern. We have the new moon, which is the sun and the moon conjunct each other, also conjunct Mercury. All those planets are forming a trine to Pluto in Aquarius, right? Because Pluto is retrograde at 3 degrees of Aquarius right now. So all those planets are trine with each other. And then together, those two sides of the bottom part of the triangle are forming the apex to Saturn, okay? And then we also have Neptune. Neptune already moved into the sign of Aries. It's at 1 degree, almost 2 degrees of Aries. It has been conjunct with Saturn, but now Saturn is joining it in the sign of Aries. And again, whenever the outer planets make these shifts between different signs, we feel that energy. They spend most of their time kind of operating unconsciously, especially the real outer planets like Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. They operate very unconsciously, subconsciously through us until they're activated by the personal planets, or when they make aspects to major angles in our charts, or when they change signs. Okay. So when they change signs, we tend to feel that energy very prominently. And so, already having Neptune having shifted into Aries, now having Saturn join it, we're already feeling that shift of energy as Saturn changes signs, but then having it come that much closer to Neptune, we're going to feel that too. So lots of things happening here, lots to unpack. Neptune conjunct Saturn in and of itself is a significant aspect. If you were to have Pluto trine with the new moon, which is also conjunct with Mercury, that's a significant aspect. Having all of that sextile with Saturn, that's a lot going on, right? These are all what we consider harmonious aspects in astrology, okay? Not good, not bad, just that the energy is flowing a little bit better. The planets are communicating with each other a little bit smoother, right? Because they are soft aspects, okay? Especially the trine. However, uh, the outer planets are no joke. They are very intense energy, and especially Pluto and especially Saturn. Those are very difficult planets. Traditionally, they're very difficult planets, okay? So even when they form quote unquote soft aspects to each other or with other planets, there's some stuff that comes up. It's a little bit sticky. There's still this kind of gunk that we have to work through, right? The nice thing is that it might be a little bit easier than if it were a hard aspect, say like a square or a conjunction or an opposition or an inconjunction, heaven forbid. But it's still going to be a little bit of that dark energy coming up. And this is a good thing. It's a good thing because we have to sift through that darker stuff. I'm saying dark just to kind of communicate the quality of energy. It could be a lot of things, right? The idea is that it's a little bit more challenging, right? Because Pluto wants to transform and Saturn wants to discipline, it wants to teach, okay? And Saturn teaches through restriction and limitation and challenge. Now, I will say that having Saturn in aspect to Mercury in general is a little bit easier of an aspect because the two planets kind of understand each other. Saturn actually is very disciplined when it comes to the mind and likes that kind of organized, linear, rational, logical way of looking at things that Mercury approaches in its expression, right? So these two planets working together, they're pretty simpatico, okay? Pluto and Saturn are pretty simpatico as well, although the energy of each of them is just very intense in general. So again, yeah, it's a sextile, but we're talking about deep shadow work. We're talking about that energy of like pressure, restriction, challenge. How can I go deep within and find my reserves of strength to move through these blocks and these obstacles? How can I transform all the parts of myself that aren't serving me or that might be like hindering my ability to do those things? We're talking about this kind of stuff, right? And I just wrote an article about Saturn's shift into Aries, and I highly recommend you go check it out. It's actually not a super long article, which is rare for me, but it does talk a little bit about what does it mean to have Saturn in Aries. And so that will give you a little bit better of an idea what it means having Saturn involved in this communication with the new moon, Mercury, Pluto, all of it, right? I do want to throw out there, though, that we also have Neptune in the mix, okay? And having Neptune conjunct Saturn is not an easy placement, right? Because Saturn, again, kind of naturally deviates towards the mind. Again, the mind is very rational and linear in this sense. We're not talking about Uranus, which is the higher mind. We're talking about like more mercurial energy, right? So Saturn likes that, but what Saturn doesn't like are emotions. Saturn is not really cool with emotions. It likes to be pretty cool and calm and collected. It doesn't like to display a lot of emotion. Neptune is emotion, right? It is specifically collective emotion, collective unconsciousness through emotion. And Neptune likes to dissolve things. Saturn likes to define things. So these two planets are very antithetical. They don't agree really on much of anything, except perhaps the principle of transforming your ego for the betterment of yourself. And that's exactly what they are doing in the sign of Aries. So we have two very conflicting energies at work together, fused together, expressing themselves together, and they are both being triggered through this minor grand trine, having Pluto in the mix, having the new moon and Mercury in the mix. So what does that all mean? What does that all add up to when it comes to our experience of things? It's obviously going to be a little bit different for each of us, and obviously it depends on what you have going on in your chart. If you have planets that are hovering around 29 or 0 degrees, if you have something going on in early degrees of Gemini, if you have something going on in the early degrees of Aquarius, you might be feeling this energy very acutely. If you have major angles of your chart involved, you're going to be feeling it very acutely. And just know that that is part of the energy signature. Again, no matter where Saturn is, even if Saturn's like in aspect via a trine with something else, its energy in general is sticky. It's contracting. It is the principle of contraction. It's Saturn's job to push us, to test us, to limit us, to challenge us. And through those experiences, that's how we learn. That's how we gain wisdom. That's how we become disciplined. And that is how we build things for ourselves and how we create lasting change. It is Saturn's job to make changes that last the test of time. So, in the long game scheme of things, this is very good energy. And again, if you're talking about manifesting, it's very good to have Saturn on your side with that, right? So, again, when it comes to manifesting, I absolutely do recommend putting some effort into that during this new moon. Take advantage of the energies. Saturn will concretize things, it will make it real, it will bring things into fruition. But just know experientially, emotionally, what you encounter in your life around this time might be difficult. It might be challenging. You might feel frustrated. You might start to experience pessimism. You might experience melancholy. Um, with Neptune in the mix, you might be feeling confused, and not just confused in like a cute, like ditzy, confused kind of way. I'm talking like everything is dissolving under your feet as you know it, and suddenly you're drowning in an ocean of chaos, kind of confused. And at the same time, you're clutching, trying to control everything and trying to create definitions and boundaries that previously maybe made sense to you, and you're trying to reconstruct those things, but it's not working. So just know that this energy is very challenging in general, even with all those happy little soft aspect patterns. Okay. So if you find yourself feeling that way, just know that, first of all, the outer planet influences the inner planet. So even though I've been talking a lot about Saturn here, Pluto and Neptune are the big players, okay? They are really influencing Saturn to change in the way that they want Saturn to change, okay? So we are talking about transformation at the deepest levels, and Pluto is giving Saturn tools to do that, okay? Neptune is just straight up saying, like, hey, everything that you previously defined doesn't matter. I'm going to dissolve it, and you're going to have to redefine it. You're going to have to start from scratch. And that can be really, really frustrating. And it can be really scary. Okay. Neptune rules Pisces. Pisces governs the axis of fear and faith. And so, usually, when we experience transits of Neptune, especially when it aspects personal planets in our chart, we tend to be thrown into chaos. We tend to experience fear and dissolution. And it can be just downright terrifying. So, just know that that's part of the process. But the name of the game with Neptune is surrender. Surrender to the process and try to find your sense of trust amidst the chaos. Try to find your sense of faith amidst the chaos. Easier said than done, especially when it is your very belief system that comes into that dissolution, right? But it is possible. Have patience with yourself. Know that you're going through something if you are experiencing this energy in that way, okay? And I'm not saying everyone will, but to those who will, I'm speaking to you because sometimes when you feel like you're drowning in an ocean, it helps to have someone throw you a life jacket, or at least, pass you by on the boat and be like, hey, a life jacket's coming soon. Just keep paddling. You'll be fine. So yeah, just know that I know it's really cliche to say, but this too shall pass. Okay. And that is kind of one of the beautiful things about astrology is it helps put things into perspective for us when we do experience major transits like this that throw us into upheaval and that create all types of confusion and frustration and are just incredibly difficult to deal with. So just know that that is the process of change, okay? And again, the name of the game with Pluto is also kind of surrender. It's not surrender in the same way as Neptune, where you're just sort of like, oh, I'm going to float into the ocean and the drop becomes the ocean. It's more like acquiescing. It's more like, okay, you want me to change? I'm not going to fight you anymore. I'm going to go along with it. It's cool. I get that this is for my highest good. So do know that, and do know that that is what's happening. This year has been so intense, folks, and it feels like every single transit that comes along is just packing a whammy. And I've just been talking to so many people, myself included. That's right, I talk to myself a lot, that are just going through enormous changes. And it is incredibly challenging, but it's obviously leading us somewhere purposeful, right? It wouldn't be happening for no reason. And this is the nature of change. It is challenging, okay? So take comfort in the fact that we're all in it together, and take comfort in the fact that it is transitory. It's not going to be permanent. At least the sense of difficulty, the sense of challenge that comes along with that process of transformation, right? And again, I know it's cliche, but it absolutely illustrates this energy. You've got the butterfly in the cocoon and it has to struggle. It has to push and fight its way through the cocoon, because if it doesn't, it's not going to be strong enough to fly. So it's part of that process, right? We have to struggle. We have to experience resistance. We have to be initiated into our power before we can gain that power. Otherwise, we will not use it responsibly, right? That's part of this entire process that we are all going through in our own way. So just know it's not permanent. Things are going to shift. You will feel energy shift. You will feel better when it does. But it's also maybe going to be a little hairy for a while. So the nice thing is that we are in Gemini season. So in general, coming through the sun, we are getting this nice, lighthearted, happy energy where we want to connect with people and we want to share ideas, and we're feeling a little bit more optimistic. So connect with that energy to help yourself move through this. And again, know that this is still a good opportunity for manifestation. So, absolutely take advantage. Another plus side to the transits that are happening right now, we have Venus and Mars trine each other still. So, that's positive. That's something that we get to experience a little bit of harmony going on with our relationships. And as well, we have at the time of this new moon, the last thing I'll mention is that the asteroid Mary Magdalena is exactly conjunct with Jupiter in those later degrees of Gemini. And now those two are actually squaring the nodal axis. So it's not completely easy energy, but again, like kind of converse to Saturn, where like Saturn will have easy aspects like a trine, but it still feels kind of like friction. Jupiter can be sort of the opposite, where you can have harder aspects, but they're not the same as if you had a hard aspect with Saturn, if that makes sense. Because in general, Jupiter's just more jovial. It's just a little bit lighter and freer kind of energy. And it does bring in opportunity. So understand that at the time of this new moon, we very well could be receiving some kind of insight coming. It could be coming through ourselves, through the deep inner knowing, through our own wisdom. We could be connecting the dots about things that we've previously struggled to understand, just gaining clarity about things that were previously very, very vague to us. And some of these things could be coming to us very intuitively. So allow yourself to be receptive. If you are experiencing synchronicity, you are definitely on the right path. And know that whatever comes through at this time, it could actually be helping you with your destiny and your karma and working out your dharma and all that beautiful stuff that rolls into the nodal axis. So, yeah, we'll go ahead and we'll wrap it up there. I hope this was helpful for y'all. And I hope you all are doing very well. We are getting close to summer solstice. And when Jupiter changes signs, I do think that we are going to feel some nice, sweet energy, which I will talk about that later. But Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. It's going to be a little bit more flowy, a little bit nicer. But in general, again, just understand that as we experience the shifts of these outer planets changing signs and then going retrograde and then going back into the signs, again, it just, even if looking at it at a snapshot lens, it is the time of change, right? It is a season of change in our lives. We are seeing major changes in the energy fields around us, and then that is manifesting through our personal experiences and within us at the deepest levels. So it can be challenging to move through, but know that it is taking you to big, beautiful, brighter places in your life ultimately. So keep your eye on the prize and really keep your eye on yourself, because the ultimate distraction is to go outside yourself, right? Everything is ultimately mirroring you. The more that you go inward, the more that you tune into your own energy, to your own process, I do believe the more efficient, if not easier, this process becomes. Okay. I wish you all so many blessings, so much growth, so much good energy. I hope that this Gemini season treats you well. I hope that you are experiencing beautiful, magnificent change in your lives. And I want to thank you so much for watching. Uh, just a heads up, I am running a little special through the end of May. I'm offering 50% off of readings. So if that's something that interests you, you can go to my website, zenithglowastrology.com, to book a reading. And if you use the code May50, you will get 50% off of your reading. And I'll go ahead and post all that in the description below. But just so you know, it's out there. All right. Thanks, guys, so much. My love to you all. I will catch you next time. Bye.